Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel NPA Discovery, the place where we look beyond chart-topping songs, polished television appearances, and carefully maintained celebrity images to discover the complicated human beings behind them. Today, we are exploring the extraordinary life of Glen Campbell. To millions of listeners, he was the golden voice of American country pop music. He was the handsome guitarist who seemed equally comfortable on a concert stage, a television set, or beside some of the biggest names in entertainment. His recordings were smooth, emotional, and accessible. His public personality suggested warmth, confidence, and effortless professionalism. But away from the spotlight, Glen's life was rarely effortless. He experienced poverty, the loss of a child, repeated marriage failures, infidelity, addiction, public scandal, violent allegations, family conflict, and the destructive consequences of trying to escape pain through fame and intoxication. The title of this video suggests that Glen Campbell lived a double life. I agree with that description, but only if we understand what double life truly means. This was not simply a case of a good public man secretly behaving badly. Glen was not divided neatly into a false performer and a real person. Both sides were real. The disciplined musician who could master an orchestral arrangement by ear was real. The addicted man who frightened the people around him was also real. The charming television host was real. The husband who betrayed trust and behaved destructively was real. The generous friend remembered warmly by fellow performers was real. The man arrested after drinking and resisting an officer was also real. Human beings rarely divide cleanly into heroes and villains. Sometimes the same sensitivity that creates beautiful art also makes emotional pain difficult to manage. Sometimes ambition provides escape from poverty but creates new forms of emptiness. Sometimes the confidence required to entertain millions becomes a mask hiding fear, shame, and dependence. Glen Campbell's life is not only a story about music. It is a story about what talent can accomplish, and what talent cannot repair. Talent can open doors. It cannot create emotional maturity automatically. Fame can provide money. It cannot guarantee peace. A hit song can change a career. It cannot make a damaged relationship healthy. And public admiration cannot save someone who refuses to confront the private choices destroying his life. Glen eventually found periods of stability, faith, friendship, and family commitment. But the road was not straight. It contained relapse, humiliation, and consequences that remained even after he tried to change. Before we begin, please take a moment to like this video, share it with another music lover, and subscribe to the channel. Now, let us travel back to rural Arkansas to a farm without electricity, a family struggling to survive, and a 4-year-old boy holding a $5 guitar that would eventually carry him far beyond everything he knew. Glen Travis Campbell was born into a large farming family in Arkansas. His childhood was shaped by physical labor, limited money, and the practical demands of survival. The family grew crops such as corn, cotton, potatoes, and watermelons. Everyone contributed because everyone had to. There was little room for romantic ideas about childhood. Work was not a lesson designed to build character. It was a necessity. The source describes the family as so poor that squirrels sometimes became part of the food available to them. Their home did not have electricity. For modern viewers, it can be difficult to understand how dramatically this shaped Glen's relationship with opportunity. He did not grow up surrounded by professional instruments, private teachers, recording equipment, or music schools. He grew up in a world where a guitar represented something almost miraculous. The instrument did not require electrical power. It did not need a wealthy institution. It could be carried into a room, onto a porch, or toward a radio microphone. For a child surrounded by farm work, the guitar offered another possible identity. He did not have to remain only the boy picking crops. He could become the person creating sound. Glen's father reportedly purchased a guitar for only a few dollars. The financial amount was small by later standards, but to a poor family, it represented sacrifice. That inexpensive instrument became more valuable than anyone could have predicted. By the time Glen was 6, he was already playing for local radio audiences. This detail is astonishing. At an age when many children are only beginning formal education, Glen was learning that music could carry him beyond the boundaries of home. Radio transformed invisible sound into connection. He could not see the listeners. They could not see the farm. For a few minutes, poverty disappeared behind the performance. The guitar allowed Glen to be judged not by the family's income, clothing, or circumstances, but by what his hands could do. This may have created the first powerful emotional association of his life: music equals freedom. That belief would drive his ambition. It would also make it difficult for him to stop working later, even when success had already been achieved. Glen's first marriage ended in 1959. He remarried quickly, choosing Billie Jean Nunley, a beautician rather than a fellow celebrity. The marriage lasted far longer than his first and produced 3 children. From the outside, this could have looked like the stable family life Glen needed. He was building a recording career while maintaining a household away from the center of celebrity romance. The performer travels. The spouse remains home. Temporary environments make permanent commitments easier to ignore. Glen's later admissions and the source's account indicate that faithfulness became a serious problem. The marriage lasted years, but duration alone does not prove security. A long relationship can contain loyalty, love, resentment, betrayal, endurance, and emotional loneliness simultaneously. Billie Jean was part of Glen's life while he developed from a hardworking studio guitarist into a major star. She experienced both the years of struggle and the disruption of success. By the time the marriage ended, Glen's public image had become larger than the private family structure supporting it. Glen signed with Crest Records and released "Turn Around, Look at Me." The song achieved modest success but did not immediately transform him into a major solo artist. He formed his own band, using a name that created confusion with the Bee Gees. This period shows that even highly respected musicians can struggle to become recognizable front figures. Session work and solo stardom require different skills. A session musician succeeds by supporting the song without demanding attention. A star must make the audience care about the person delivering it. Glen had the voice, appearance, and instrumental ability. What he needed was the right material and production partnership. The industry contains countless musicians capable of performing brilliantly. Few find the combination of song, timing, producer, marketing, and public mood required for a breakthrough. Glen kept working. That persistence matters. His later success can appear inevitable because we know the hits. At the time, the record companies saw a musician who had not produced enough commercial evidence. Capitol Records eventually considered ending the relationship. The golden career almost disappeared before it fully began. In 1965, the Beach Boys needed a musician to replace Brian Wilson during touring. Wilson was struggling under enormous psychological and professional pressure. Glen stepped in. He could play bass. He could sing high harmonies. He understood the arrangements. This opportunity placed him inside one of the most successful groups in American music. But it emerged because another artist could no longer withstand the demands. Entertainment history often presents opportunity as simple good fortune. There is usually another side. One performer breaks down. Another receives the job. One actor is fired. Another wins the role. One athlete is injured. A substitute becomes a star. Glen did not cause Wilson's difficulties. He responded professionally to the opening. Wilson later offered Glen the song, "Guess I'm Dumb," and helped produce it. The recording demanded significant vocal ability. Yet it failed commercially. This demonstrates how little control even great musicians have over public response. A respected songwriter, a gifted performer, and a carefully produced record can still fail to chart. Quality matters. Timing matters too. Glen continued. The failed single did not erase the skill that created it. Glen recorded "Universal Soldier," a song written by Buffy Sainte-Marie and associated with anti-war ideas. Listeners naturally assumed the performer agreed with the message. This is one of the complications of interpretation. When a singer performs in the first person, audiences often treat the lyrics as personal confession. But performers sing material for many reasons. They may admire the melody. The producer may choose the song. The record company may believe it will sell. The singer may connect with only part of the message. Glen later expressed a harsh view regarding people who burn draft cards, creating a striking contradiction between the song's perceived politics and his own comments. This reminds us not to confuse art automatically with autobiography. An actor playing a criminal does not endorse crime. A singer performing a protest song may not share every political implication. The audience has the right to interpret the recording. It should remain careful about using the recording as proof of the performer's beliefs. For Glen, Universal Soldier provided his strongest chart performance up to that point but did not lead immediately to a consistent series of hits. Capitol still doubted his future. Commercial survival required something more. Capitol Records reportedly gave Glen one final opportunity. He was paired with producer Al DeLory and instructed to create a hit. This kind of ultimatum can either paralyze or focus an artist. Every studio session becomes a referendum on the entire career. Every note carries fear. Glen and DeLory succeeded with Burning Bridges, creating enough momentum to continue. Then came Gentle on My Mind and By the Time I Get to Phoenix. These recordings changed Glen's life. They combined country storytelling with arrangements capable of reaching pop audiences. Glen's voice had a quality ideal for longing. He could sound polished without becoming emotionally distant. He could deliver sadness with restraint. This restraint mattered. The songs did not need shouting. They needed a singer who could make regret sound lived rather than performed. The recordings earned multiple Grammy Awards. Then By the Time I Get to Phoenix received Album of the Year recognition in competition with major artists, including the Beatles. The former farm boy and nearly discarded recording artist had reached the center of the industry. Success appeared complete. But success solved the immediate career problem while creating new personal pressures. By the Time I Get to Phoenix tells a story of departure, distance, and a relationship ending through movement. The narrator imagines where the other person will be as he travels farther away. The song is controlled, but the emotional damage grows through geography. Glen's performance became iconic partly because his life already contained movement away from people. He had left the farm. He had left school. He had left ordinary work. He had moved toward Albuquerque, Houston, and Los Angeles. Travel created opportunity. It also became a pattern of separation. A touring musician repeatedly leaves home while singing songs about love, loneliness, and return. The audience hears emotional truth. The family experiences physical absence. This does not mean Glen consciously sang his personal history. It means his voice carried a familiarity with leaving. The same man who could express regret beautifully in a song sometimes failed to prevent regret through his choices. That contradiction is common among artists. They understand emotion artistically before they understand how to live responsibly inside it. Glen's visibility attracted Hollywood. John Wayne became connected to an offer for Glen to appear in True Grit. The role had reportedly been associated earlier with Elvis Presley, but negotiations involving billing prevented that arrangement. Glen received the opportunity. He had little acting experience. Suddenly, he was working beside one of the most established stars in film under a demanding director. Talent in one medium does not automatically transfer to another. A singer controls rhythm, phrasing, and voice. A film actor must produce believable behavior under artificial conditions. The camera may be inches away. The scene may be filmed out of order. A director may demand emotional intensity repeatedly. Glen reportedly became tense when the director called action. The director criticized his performance. Glen later joked self-deprecatingly about his own acting, suggesting that his weakness made Wayne appear even stronger. The humor protected him from criticism by delivering the joke first. Yet Glen received recognition as a promising newcomer. He also learned something important. The camera liked him. Even when acting was not his strongest craft, his appearance and personality translated visually. That quality would become more valuable on television than in movies. The Glen Campbell Goodtime Hour established Glen as a television personality. The variety format suited him perfectly. He could sing, play, joke, introduce guests, and appear relaxed. The program featured major musicians and actors. Its writing staff included emerging talents such as Steve Martin and Rob Reiner. Television transformed Glen from a recording artist into a familiar presence inside American homes. A concert audience may encounter a performer once. A television audience sees him regularly. Familiarity creates trust. Glen appeared polished, friendly, and dependable. The show's title promised a good time. This became part of his public identity. But a television personality is not the same as a private person. The camera rewards consistency. Every week, the host must appear emotionally available, energetic, and in control. Private problems cannot be allowed to disrupt the format. This creates a powerful split. The public sees stability because stability is part of the job. The performer may experience chaos immediately before or after filming. The better he performs, the easier it becomes for everyone to ignore the warning signs. Glen's double life did not begin when addiction became severe. It began whenever the professional image required him to hide emotional reality. After True Grit, Glen attempted another feature film, Norwood. The marketing relied heavily on the celebrity identities of Glen and football star Joe Namath. Neither was known primarily for acting. The film received an indifferent response. Glen's feature film career did not continue. From one perspective, this was failure. From another, it was useful correction. Glen had tried another path and discovered that it did not reflect his strongest abilities. Successful people often waste years defending an opportunity simply because it appears prestigious. Glen returned to music. That decision preserved the career that mattered most. The film experience also provided humility. He could be a world-class musician and an ordinary actor. Excellence is not universal. A person can dominate one field and struggle in another. Recognizing that distinction is a form of intelligence. By the early 1970s, Glen needed renewed commercial momentum. He heard Rhinestone Cowboy, written and previously recorded by Larry Weiss. The song tells the story of a performer enduring rejection while dreaming of recognition. Glen understood the emotional world immediately. He had lived the session work, near rejection, small recordings, and uncertainty. Even after becoming famous, the fear of losing relevance remained. A song about an aspiring performer became meaningful to a man already successful because fame does not eliminate the memory of struggle. It may intensify it. The successful artist understands exactly what can be lost. Glen recorded the song. Rhinestone Cowboy became one of the defining hits of his career, reaching the top of both country and pop charts. The achievement confirmed his crossover power. He was not limited to one audience. But the song's success also increased the very pressure it described. He had to remain the Rhinestone Cowboy. The public expected confidence, success, and polish. Inside, Glen was becoming less stable. A signature song can become both blessing and burden. It gives the artist permanent recognition. It may also reduce decades of work to one title. Glen became the Rhinestone Cowboy. The phrase carried glamour and endurance. It represented the performer who continues despite rejection. Glen later used the identity even during a humiliating arrest, reportedly telling officers exactly who he was. This shows how celebrity labels can become psychological armor. When ordinary authority challenged him, he reached for the famous identity. But a police officer does not have to respond like a fan. The title could not protect him from consequences. Before that later event, the success of Rhinestone Cowboy expanded Glen's wealth, attention, and access. It also coincided with increasing drinking, infidelity, and drug use. The career was rising again. The man was losing control. People often assume addiction grows from failure. Sometimes success provides the ideal environment for it. Money removes practical limits. Staff and friends may protect the star from consequences. Travel creates anonymity. It did not heal it. Money increased access. It did not create restraint. Romance created excitement. It did not create stability. Alcohol and drugs provided temporary escape. They did not create peace. Glen spent years proving that he could control an instrument. His private life demonstrated how difficult it was to control himself. That contrast is not unique to him. Many people are highly capable in the area where the world rewards them. They solve technical problems, lead companies, care for patients, raise children, perform on stages. Then they return home and confront emotions they never learned to manage. Competence becomes camouflage. Everyone says, he is doing so well. The person thinks, as long as I keep producing, no one will see that I am falling apart. Eventually, the private collapse becomes too large for the public success to contain. For Glen, that collapse appeared in broken marriages, frightening behavior, violent allegations, addiction, humiliation, and arrest. His story should not be told only as scandal. Scandal invites us to stare. Understanding asks us to learn. The lesson is not that talented people are secretly terrible. The lesson is that talent does not exempt anyone from the emotional work required to live responsibly. You can be the best musician in the room and still need help. You can be loved by millions and still owe an apology to one person. You can sing about tenderness and still need to learn how to behave tenderly. You can survive poverty and still carry poverty's fear inside you. You can achieve every dream you once imagined and discover that achievement is not the same as peace. Glen's later efforts toward faith, sobriety, family stability, and friendship mattered because change matters. But change should never be used to silence the history that made change necessary. A person seeking redemption must be willing to look directly at the damage. Not blame the partner. Not blame fame. Not blame childhood. Not blame the substance as though it entered the body by itself. Explanation can open the door to treatment. Accountability must walk through it. Glen's story also asks us to think about the people beside the star. The wives who endured absence, infidelity, intoxication, and fear. The partners caught inside volatile relationships. The children who experienced different versions of their father. The musicians who saw his extraordinary professionalism. The friends who remembered his warmth. The officers who encountered him when the celebrity identity could not excuse dangerous behavior. All these witnesses belong to the story. A life is not defined only by how the person felt about himself. It is also defined by what other people experienced in his presence. This does not mean Glen should be remembered without compassion. Compassion becomes more meaningful when it is honest. We can look at the boy on the Arkansas farm and understand the hunger inside him. We can imagine the terror of returning to poverty. We can recognize the grief of losing a premature son before adulthood had fully begun. We can see how touring, fame, pressure, and access created an environment where destructive coping became easy. Then we must say clearly, pain can explain why someone reached for the bottle. It does not make the frightened spouse responsible for the weapon pointed at her. Fame can explain why temptation multiplied. It does not make betrayal inevitable. Addiction can explain the loss of control. It does not mean the harmed people must remain silent. The story becomes empowering when we refuse both shame and denial. Shame says a person who has caused harm can never become more than his worst act. Denial says the harm should be ignored because the person created something beautiful. Accountability offers a third path. The person is more than the worst act. The act still matters. Change is possible. Consequences remain. This is the mature way to remember Glen Campbell. Listen to Gentle on My Mind. Hear the musical intelligence. Listen to By the Time I Get to Phoenix. Hear the loneliness in the journey. Listen to Rhinestone Cowboy. Hear the determination of someone refusing to surrender his dream. Then remember that songs are not moral certificates. They are creations. We can receive what is beautiful in them without constructing a false saint around the singer. There is one image that summarizes Glen's life powerfully. A poor child sits with a cheap guitar in a home without electricity. He has no formal teacher. No guarantee. No audience large enough to transform his future. He listens to the radio and teaches his hands to reproduce what he hears. That child is not thinking about Grammy awards, broken hotel rooms, failed marriages, police stations, lawsuits over inheritance, or arguments over his memory. He is thinking about sound. About possibility. About becoming something larger than his circumstances. That possibility was real. He achieved it. The tragedy is not that fame was meaningless. The tragedy is that fame became larger than the emotional foundation beneath it. We should not respond by abandoning ambition. We should build the foundation while pursuing the dream. Learn the instrument. Also learn how to apologize. Build the career. Also build relationships that do not depend on performance. Develop confidence. Also develop humility. Seek success. Also decide who you will be when success disappears for the evening and the room becomes quiet. Do not wait for the broken marriage, the arrest, the frightened spouse, or the public humiliation before confronting what is becoming destructive. The golden image cannot protect you forever. The rhinestones reflect light. They do not generate it. Real light must come from the ability to remain honest when no camera is present. Glen Campbell's life was not wasted because it was flawed. It was not purified because it produced beautiful music. It was human, astonishing, gifted, wounded, destructive, resilient, and unfinished in the way every human life remains unfinished. His journey shows that a person can rise from poverty and still have farther to travel internally. He can lose control and still begin recovering. He can relapse and still return to responsibility. He can leave behind conflict and still leave behind beauty. And those who remember him do not have to choose between worship and rejection. We can choose truth. Thank you for joining us for this journey through the music, fame, addiction, relationships, and complicated legacy of Glen Campbell. Let us know in the comments which Glen Campbell's song means the most to you, and whether knowing the difficult truth behind an artist changes the way you experience the music. Please like this video, share it with another country music fan, and subscribe to the channel for more deeply human stories from behind the legends. And until next time, remember, your talent may open the door. Your character determines what happens after you enter. Your past may explain your wounds. It does not have to dictate what you do with them. Your success may impress the world. It cannot replace the work of becoming honest, safe, and emotionally responsible. Do not build a public life so bright that you become afraid to examine the darkness behind it. Turn toward it. Name it. Seek help. Accept consequences. Repair what can still be repaired. And when the world calls you by the title of your greatest achievement, remember that you are responsible for the person who remains after the song ends. Glen Campbell became the Rhinestone Cowboy, but his greatest struggle was not reaching the stage. It was learning that no spotlight, no award, and no #1 song could save him from the choices he made when the audience was gone. That lesson arrived painfully. It does not have to arrive too late for us.